The offseason starting a little bit earlier for the playoff-less San Francisco 49ers. We're diving into free agents. Which free agents should stay for the 49ers? Which free agents should go? Which players can the 49ers not afford and not afford to lose? Coming at you on this Winky Wednesday episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. We see you. We appreciate you. Let us know you're there though. Hit that like button, and new listeners, hit subscribe. We appreciate you joining the show as we break down the San Francisco 49ers daily offseason free agency, NFL draft, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to your podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers. I'll introduce our guest. If you're watching us on YouTube, you see him already on the screen. A little different format here on the Locked On Network, though, changing up the graphics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. A big return right now on FanDuel because new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose that first $5 bet. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. And now let's bring on today's guest.
Nick Winkler, come on down.
Can't believe it.
Of course, it is Winky Wednesday, and that means today's guest is Mr. Nicholas Winkler, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host on a podcast that predated this San Francisco 49ers podcast, and a good buddy of mine, and also known as the voice of the fan, Mr. Nicholas Winkler, joining the program for the first time with me this offseason. Thanks for jumping in with Croc while I was gone, Wink. And I'm glad to talk to you here. And let's get started with the offseason because there's a lot to do for the San Francisco 49ers. And I can't figure out if they're retooling, if it's a transition year, if it's a run it back year. Big picture heading into the offseason first, Wink, before we get to the specific players and if the Niners should keep them or if they should let them leave in free agency. What are your overall thoughts on the way the 49ers season ended, a 6-11 football team? We were talking off the air. The San Francisco 49ers in 2025 had one more victory than the Carolina Panthers. The Niners coming off the Super Bowl, the Panthers were a laughing stock. So where's your head at going into the offseason in 2025 with the 49ers?
And fewer wins than the Cowboys, too, which really hurt a lot. When I looked at this final schedule, I was like, oh, that stings
you
inside.
Like drafting in front of the Cowboys and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
You like that fourth place schedule next year, which should be a lot easier schedule in the 49ers this year and one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL. So that's nice, but you also don't like when you run into your friends who are Cowboys fans, and they're like, yeah, we were just a little less sucky than you guys this year, but we had a better scoreboard. Look at the scoreboard.
Or your brother if you're Croc. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but the 49ers beat the Cowboys, so
yeah,
y'all can have the better record overall.
Good call.
Wax that ass. When
Crocker, the Niners did win the Crocker Super Bowl this year too, which is really important. And if you're going to have one, make it that one.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Look, I barely remember the 49ers last Super Bowl in 1994. So for someone who was 7, 8 years old at the time, I had to come up with another Super Bowl. And it just happens to be anytime the 49ers play Dallas Cowboys. So
yeah, I was
everybody else, y'all can wait. Y'all can wait for the 49ers to win an actual Super Bowl if you want to. But my 49ers, I've seen the 49ers win several Super Bowls now.
There you go. I like the Crocker Bowl. I like the way Peacock framed that. I really like that. But for me, I mean, you take a look at the whole season, and obviously it's a huge disappointment, right? I mean, there were a couple of good feelings throughout the season of, like, when we beat Seattle, and it's like, yeah, let's go. We're back in this. We can go on a run and this and that. And then, it's just back to back to back. Just everything. You just kept getting hit, right? It's like when a boxer's trying to get up off the mat, and then they get up, and then it's just getting pounded again. Then you're back down, and you're climbing back up. I'm going to get back at. Oh, ding, ding, ding! All right, we were saved this round. We're going to retool and come back. No, back down on the mat again, right when the bell rings the next round, and that's kind of what the 49ers season felt like for me. But that being said, I don't think it's time to hit the reset button. You asked if it's a retool time or if it's just like a let's run it back, fix a few things, plug a few gaps here and there and go back at it with these same guys. And I mean, that's the camp I'm in right now.
Let's get into the free agents because that's one way you can get better or one way to not get worse, I guess, would be a way to put it. And let's start with some names here, and we'll go through and we'll go round table style here, and we'll just break down what we think about the 49ers in-house free agents and who's the most important and who the 49ers should bring back. I want to start really quick with just a few exclusive rights free agents that the 49ers have. Guys like Sam Okuwanu, who he's going to get his, exclusive rights, restricted free agent tender. He's not going anywhere. He's free value for the San Francisco 49ers and played a really huge role by the end of this season for the 49ers. The same probably goes for a guy like Evan Anderson, who right now is defensive tackle 1 or 2, along with Malik Collins on the 49ers defensive line, because Javon Hargrave is not coming back. So we can skip Javon Hargrave as well, because it sounds like he's going to be gone. And really, as a free agent signing, he wasn't somebody that really hit like the 49ers hoped when they spent a big money on a free agent addition like Javon Hargrave to come in and make a huge difference on that defensive line. I talked about on the last pod, Wink, if you haven't heard it yet, that it was all about fixing the front, and offensive lineman and defensive lineman should be brought in, and maybe not a lot of free agent dollars to do that for long-term deals, but certainly high in the draft. The 49ers need to address some of these positions. But I think Sam Okuwanu and Evan Anderson, really nice seasons for them. They're basically free in NFL terms, and they will be tendered at whatever level they need to be back for the San Francisco 49ers. We might see Jake Tongas, the tight end, Braden Willis, the tight end, and Jalen Graham, the linebacker, also exclusive rights free agents on their way back as well for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's get to the unrestricted variety of free agents, and I want to start with Dre Greenlaw, because it was pretty impressive the way he came in and really helped right away for at least one half of football for the San Francisco 49ers. And might that one half of football been enough to prove his worth for you guys? Wink, we'll start with you. Dre Greenlaw, stay or go in 2025 and beyond.
Well, for me, it's really hard to look at the 49ers defense and see someone else that's better than Fred Warner on the football field. That half of football, Dre Greenlaw was better than Fred Warner. I mean, he has that ability. He has that ability to be, if not the best, one of the best middle linebackers in football. We've seen it. And if the 49ers can bring that back and pair it with the best middle linebacker in football, I think you got to make that a priority. I mean, he's a fantastic football player.
Croc, Dre Greenlaw?
I like him. But I guess the one thing that makes me kind of pause just a little bit is the 49ers have been really good at drafting and developing linebackers. And this is a guy that the guy in the 5th round. I mean, we saw his impact the moment he came back, and it looked drastically different than anything we had seen, at least after the first quarter of the season, because of how well Fred Warner had played. But I don't know. You drafted some young guys. They have some talent. I think your long-term guys, Fred Warner, I think they did a really good job re-upping Dre Greenlaw for the low. If you're able to get him back because he's coming off of an injury, played in 2 games this past season, maybe that makes it to where you can get him a little cheaper and you can get 1-year deal. You guys remember like the COVID year when 49ers fans, and I think even the team thought, man, we're going to lose K'Waun Williams, and we're going to lose this guy, we're going to lose that guy. And just because of the market for those guys and the positions they played, they end up coming back to the 49ers for like a 1-year contract. And I could see a scenario like that where Drake Greenlaw is able to come back because maybe he's not getting as much as he would have expected. There's another guy I'm sure we'll talk about soon that'll be a free agent. That conversation would probably be very similar to him because they didn't quite have the seasons that they ideally wanted to have this year that would have made it to where there'll be a priority free agent for everyone.
Going away party aside, I think the 49ers should do what they can to try to bring him back. If the free agent market with the injuries that he's dealt with and not being able to come back and then finish the season and show everybody else in the NFL that he was healthy 100% going into the offseason, does that allow the 49ers to have 1 more year of Dre Greenlaw with the prove-it deal while they draft and develop another mid-round guy? I would love for that to happen. When I see the big 5-7 and they're having a going away party and they're having cake, I'm like, that sounds like he might be thinking he's on his way out. So we'll see. We'll see if a deal could get done for Dre Greenlaw. I have a feeling it will probably not be able to get done with Dre Greenlaw, just reading the tea leaves and with all the expenditures the San Francisco 49ers have. Can they pay another linebacker? If he gets a decent long-term deal, multi-year deal with another team, I think Dre Greenlaw is probably going to be gone, as much as I would like to see Greenlaw back for at least 1 more run with the San Francisco 49ers. I think that player you were hinting at, Croc, is none other than Talanoa Hufanga, the star safety for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's talk about Hufanga and numerous other. Oh, maybe it's not him.
Oh,
Chuck's got a trick up his sleeve on me. I thought he was talking about Hufanga, who was injured. Looked like he was making an impact for the San Francisco 49ers when he came back, and all the other unrestricted free agents for the San Francisco 49ers. Stay or go. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 extra to play with at FanDuel in bonus bets, win or lose on that first $5 bet. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. I know a lot of 49ers fans out there are in draft mode. How about draft props? One of my favorite ways to bet on any sport, including the NFL, is those off-season NFL draft props. And all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get involved and join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. All right, how about Talanoa Hufanga? He is an impactful player. He's got an all-pro on his resume. Like Dre Greenlaw, he was banged up. He came back, and immediately you felt the presence of a guy like Talanoa Hufanga. You can't keep losing really good, impactful football players. And if you see Dre Greenlaw walk out the door, and you see someone like Talanoa Hufanga walk out the door, guys, what's going to be the thing that turns around this 49ers defense from being a better unit than what we saw this year?
I will defer to the secondary master over there.
Croc probably wants a whole bunch of corners rather than safety. He thinks they're more skilled.
No, but I think when you have a legit safety that can essentially be kind of the eraser of the defense. I mean, you think of the Seattle Seahawks, right, in those prime years. And Cam Chancellor, of course, very deserving of all the props that he gets and what he was and really being an enforcer. But Earl Thomas made that defense really come together, because it was almost like there was nowhere he couldn't be when the ball was thrown, almost like an Ed Reed. Now, I'm not saying 49ers are going to find that kind of safety, whether it's Talanoa Hufanga or someone else in free agency or in the draft, but having a legit safety, I mean, it changes a lot of things. It's almost like the dual threat running back, where I feel like it's a little underappreciated. But man, when you have one, it's like how much do you value having Christian McCaffrey when he's back there? He's able to run routes out the backfield, and he can run, and he can take off, he can do this. We're seeing Saquon Barkley having a magical season this year because he's able to do those things. And I've been really wanting the 49ers to, hey man, like you got Derwin James and Minka Fitzpatrick. Like those are the difference makers. And I think a kind of poor man's version of those guys is probably Jimmy Ward and the versatility that he brought. You want me to play two high, single high, when we play in the slot, play man-to-man on guys. He was able to do all those things. So
linebacker.
I definitely would be looking for that caliber of a safety, a guy that has that kind of talent, whether you get the Minka Fitzpatrick or you get the Jimmy Ward. Either way, I think that's a player that the 49ers are kind of missing right now in their defense.
I mean, we've seen Hufanga be fantastic. We've seen him be that guy. Absolutely. It wasn't for a long extended period of time, but one season of that was impressive. It was like, oh, this guy's the future. We're not going to need to worry about that safety position for a while now. And then injuries came in, and here we are.
I think you got to keep one of Greenlaw or Hufanga.
Okay.
And so that'd be my plan. You probably start with Greenlaw, so you can get that sweetheart of a 1-year prove it deal for him to prove he's healthy before he goes and cashes in free agency and give you an opportunity to maybe develop another safety. But you start to have some sneaky depth issues, and you start looking at the draft, and the Niners have a lot of picks, but it's like, okay, well, you need to draft a defensive lineman and offensive lineman high, and then maybe a second offensive lineman, a second defensive lineman. But it's like, then now you need a tight end, and you need a linebacker, and you need a corner, and you need a safety, and you need a backup quarterback that's cheap if you're going to pay your quarterback big money. And so it starts to get there starts to be quite a few needs if the 49ers can't bring back some of their really impactful free agents. And you don't want to start forcing need in the draft either. And it's something the 49ers have done, and it's gotten them into, I think, some problems. in the past, especially with some of their higher picks when they're forcing needs and not just letting the best players fall to them. And the next one is Devondre Campbell. Just kidding. We all know that Devondre Campbell never coming back and might never suit up on an NFL football field.
I'd be shocked.
Again. Yeah, I just saw his name too, and I kind of forgot he was on the list and listed as a free agent. It's just like, oh my God, Devondre Campbell. What kind of, I mean, just the perfect microcosm of the San Francisco 49ers season with that dude. Like, what's going on? Charvarius Ward.
For John Lynch to have to come down to the field and kick a player off the sideline.
I love that John Lynch did that.
Me too. 100%. That's the guy you want in your front office. Yeah.
GMs would have that meeting on Monday with security around him. John Lynch is his own security. He went down there and he's like, get the hell off my football field. And I love that about John Lynch. I absolutely love that. Charvarius Ward, a really tough year for Charvarius Ward. He's been a really good San Francisco 49er. Speaking of guys who were impactful, and this is a starting corner that the 49ers replaced in last year's draft, but now you got to replace what Renardo Green was for the 49ers as a number 3 cornerback. So still a need if Charvarius Ward goes, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, but it feels like Charvarius Ward, he's basically said as much as he's probably on his way out next season.
Well, that was the guy I was kind of referring to earlier. Yeah. And he talked about how the door is open for him to potentially return based on what the market, and a true market, right? When you actually get to test the market, right, see what you're worth, and then come back to the 49ers and see where they're at. But, the market may not be what he thought. And these are his words. He said, man, I played extremely well the previous season. I knew if I had another year like that, then the 49ers just probably most likely would not be able to afford me. And they probably had to pick between him and Deommodore Lenoir, which they went to the Lenoir route. And he was going to be a free agent and expect a bunch of money. But he was kind of banged up. He had some tragedies off of the field, different things going on. And now that number that may not have been matchable by the 49ers, there's an opportunity for them to be able to bring him back. And, to what role, right? We'll see. But that's somebody that has played a lot of good football for the 49ers. The other issue is, and it was talking about just being in the Bay Area. His wife does not want to be in the Bay. Right. She's back, wherever they're from, I think Texas maybe, and him saying she doesn't want to return because it's hard because of the situation that they've gone through. And every time she thinks of California, it's just a reminder of the tragedy that they've had to deal with. And I think that's extremely tough. I understand that. Well, actually, I can't even fathom what they're going through with that, but I can understand, how it makes them feel. And for him, it's like, well, dang, I'm back in California. My wife doesn't want to be here. That's the person I lean on for emotional support. And now I'm out here by myself. I think that could be tough for him. So if there's any reason he's going to be gone, I don't know if the money still will be an issue, but I think it may be their personal situation that they went through that may make it very difficult for him to remain a 49er.
Yeah, we're all fathers on this show. We can't even fathom how hard that must have been, what they went through together, and that so obviously I would be shocked if he's back as a 49er. I'd love him back as a 49er, but with everything you just said, Croc, it completely makes sense why he would want to move on with his family.
Yeah, totally understandable. Which brings me to the next player, which is cornerback Isaac Yiadom. He was on a 1-year deal for the San Francisco 49ers. I think a lot of Niners fans like to point at him as one of the weak links in the 49ers secondary when he was on the field. But I think the 49ers got to have a veteran corner to replace at least partially Charvarius Ward so they don't have to force things again as it pertains to the NFL draft. And you still need to draft a guy and develop him. But it's probably got to be either Isaac Yiadom or the other 1-year free agent in Rock Ya-Sin or some outside 1-year free agent stopgap just to make sure you got a guy that you can trust in there as the number 3 guy going into the year.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's the answer to that, but I think you're right. Because when you invest so much money in Lenoir, you got to find a cheaper alternative opposite, or like maybe Green can hop up to that number 2 spot, and you got to fill that 3 spot going forward. But that, I think that's going to be a spot where you mentioned offensive line, you mentioned defensive line. I think that's another spot where the 49ers are going to address in the draft for sure.
Yay or nay on Yiadom, Croc?
Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling me he's your 5th, 6th corner, I know that there's not a huge difference between like your 4th, 5th, 6th and practice squad guys. So from that standpoint, bring him in. He's a veteran and he has starting experience. But he was someone I felt like he got picked on a lot. I'd have to look at the numbers, but that was the feeling that I got. So ideally, you would want to try to get more out of that guy, whoever that fifth corner is. But if you just want a veteran presence there and somebody that could step in and in the moment not be too big for him, I think he can help there. But I probably would pass.
All right. So Croc wants to pull a card, I think, at corner, because you don't think Rock Ya-Sin's the guy either, right?
Nah.
He was behind Yedem, so they would.
I'm always about drafting guys. I'm always about drafting corners.
Right.
You can never have too many coverage guys, and 49ers even getting a guy like Diamador Lenore, who he was a 5th-round pick. So and he wasn't their first corner that they took in that class. So every year I would be drafting 2 cornerbacks at some point. Whether it's if it's a really huge need, then I would go high, first, second round. If it's not a huge need, then all right, let me shoot in the 4th, let me shoot in the 5th, and just see if one of these guys can have some special teams value early on and potentially develop into someone that, the guy can actually play.
I know the 49ers were bad on special teams. I want to talk about a couple of linebackers here, because if you lose Dre Greenlaw, Devondre Campbell is obviously not coming back. You might draft a guy. D. Winters, I can't tell if the 49ers really like him or not. Jalen Graham, the 49ers clearly have said they don't love him because he's bounced off the practice squad and back onto the roster a couple of times. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who they clearly like and has been on the team for a long time. And then special teams ace linebacker Curtis Robinson are free agents as well. Curtis Robinson, the restricted variety, but the 49ers were bad on special teams. So do they need a whole new group on special teams too? DFF, Curtis Robinson. What do you think, guys?
I think you nailed it when you said they weren't good on special teams. Why do you bring back a guy that's your special team specialist and he wasn't that good? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Oh man, I don't like.
Maybe you just want to build around him, right? If he was maybe good, but there was just too much attention that was able to be allocated to him.
Sure,
there's an opportunity to get somebody else that can take some of the pressure off him.
I'm going to say Curtis Robinson stays. The 49ers really like him, and he's also a restricted free agent, not an unrestricted free agent. So it'll make it a little easier to keep him around for another year. DFF, it seems like he's never going away either. The 49ers really like him, but it's when you start going through this, guys, you start to see a lot of sneaky needs, and linebacker is going to be one of those, I think, for the 49ers in the 2025 draft. And if you let Ward and Yedem and Rock Ya-Sin, they'll probably draft. The 49ers will bring some veteran corner in, but they'll probably have to draft a cornerback as well. So the needs starting to stack up here. I want to talk about some guys on the offensive side of the ball, a couple more defensive players really quick. We got defensive tackle Kevin Givens, DT Khalil Davis, who we barely knew, the addition at the trade deadline, who I can't even remember if I saw him on the field in the second half of the year after they traded for him. You got
it's not good.
Cornerback Nick McLeod, who's another special teams guy. And I think of the unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents, that is the end of the defensive side of the ball. So what do you guys think? Yay or nay? Stay or go? Kevin Givens and I already forgot who the other player was on defense. Help me out here. Oh, Nick McLeod, Kevin Givens, and Khalil Davis. Khalil Davis is an easy no just because I never saw him play.
I've always liked Givens. I think he can, as not a starter maybe, but as a rotational guy, I think he can stick. But the other two guys you mentioned, I'm like, who?
So it's going to be, you got to bring back Givens, and then you got Evan Anderson, and then you've got one more year of Malik Collins, and then you still got to draft a guy and maybe add another free agent as well into the mix. So yeah, defensive tackle, I think you got to try to keep Kevin Givens, and I don't think he's somebody who's going to break the bank in free agency and go for a big money contract somewhere else.
Before we get too far off the D. Winters stuff, you mentioned his name. I feel like he's undersized out there when he's playing. Like, I feel like he's a speedy guy, but I feel like he doesn't quite fit what the 49ers want to run. I don't know. He just didn't seem like a good fit for that defense.
There's some interesting names on offense, and this one, it might be almost about the guys saying, you know what? I don't know if I like my role. I might be better off somewhere else, surprisingly. So a couple of those names on the free agent list for the San Francisco 49ers on the offensive side of the ball next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. And let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. And we've used LinkedIn Jobs here on the Locked On Podcast Network to find great candidates. And in fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality candidates. And so that's why LinkedIn helps you find the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else. So hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, fellas. I have a sneaking suspicion that backup quarterback or third string, then second string backup quarterback Joshua Dobbs might say, to heck with you guys. I should have been the number 2 all season long. I should have at least had a chance to play more than I did this year in front of Brandon Allen. Joshua Dobbs, I feel like he might be on the way out, and it might be more because he says he wants out, knowing that the 49ers also are going to spend a whole bunch of money on Brock Purdy, so there's no path for him to compete at all with the San Francisco 49ers, and he already lost the number 2 job last offseason.
And it's not going to help when the 49ers add Kirk Cousins. That's inevitable.
So you're telling me,
or Aaron Rodgers.
You're telling me that Brandon Allen's also on his way out because he's an unrestricted free agent as well. The 49ers, they need to draft a cheap quarterback. They need to find the next version of they need to find the 2012 version of Kirk Cousins. They need to find the 2020 the 2022 version of Brock Purdy. They need a cheap young quarterback that doesn't cost them much on the books with expensive starting quarterback Brock Purdy, in my opinion. And Brandon Allen, I don't know who's going to be beating down his door, so maybe it's Allen and Malachi. What do I call him? I called him the wrong name. I called him
Malachi.
Mordecai.
Right? Mordecai. Yeah. Thank you, Mordecai. Yeah, Mordecai, Brandon Allen, and a rookie battling it out behind Brock Purdy. I think that's the plan.
So I see Mordecai being like, I'm just a big believer in development. A guy that just nobody has talked about who silently had a really good year, McKivitz, right? And nobody mentioned that. But I always wondered, like, is there no chance that this guy develops into something, right? Like, is there a chance we haven't seen the best version of him? And while everybody's still banging the table to get a tackle, McKivitz silently had a solid year. Like,
you think that's because Pooney was next to him? And that really helps you when you have a really good guy playing right next to you, right?
That might have helped, but my big thing there is it was a guy that maybe you didn't expect a whole lot of, but he just developed into something, right? A guy that could contribute, and he probably made it, for the 49ers to be like, yes, we would love to draft a tackle that we really love, but man, we don't have to force it. Because McKivitz played well, and we know we have Trent Williams coming back. That's not what 49 fans want to hear. I know it's not.
First time I've heard that. It's the first time ever. But I like it, Croc. I like it.
Yeah. But if you have the tackle there, you take the tackle. Like if the guy is there that you like. But I think it makes it to where you don't have to force it. Well, same thing with the backup quarterback position. If Taylor Mordecai has taken the necessary steps moving forward, I know we haven't been able to see him in live action, but they're watching him in practice. And they see him as someone, and we know the backup quarterback doesn't have to be amazing, right? Like, quick, who's the backup quarterback on the Kansas City Chiefs?
Carson Wentz.
Oh wow, you guys are pretty good. All right, but most people probably don't.
He played week 18. That's why I know that.
Yeah, that's right. But most people you don't quite know, right? And yeah, you have a Carson Wentz, but you rattle off a lot of these teams. Matthew Stafford backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, like sometimes it's kind of guys like that. So I don't know. I look at it like maybe Mordecai just needs to be a really good placeholder. Brandon Allen was Joe Burrow's backup for 3 years, and nobody batted an eye at who is the backup quarterback. Can he win games? Man, can he just be a good backup? And maybe Mordecai, if he can't develop into somebody that you feel really comfortable having to start a bunch of games, can he at least be someone who is a good backup to Brock Purdy and makes it to where he makes Brock Purdy's job a little easier as far as assisting him off of the field.
The only starter on offense that is a free agent for the 49ers is left guard Aaron Banks. Starting guards, when they hit free agency, are making decent cash these days, guys. Aaron Banks, stay or go. And if it's go, how much harder does that make the 49ers to try to improve? Because the 49ers fans want a better offensive line next year. And so you start losing starters, I think that makes it even more difficult. It makes it a little bit more of a narrow passage that you have to hit to lose starters and get better at the same time.
You just can't overpay, right? I mean, that's where it gets tough because you're already still paying Trent Williams so much money, and you gotta find that starter at left guard, but you can't pay him what he might go get. He might go get a $60 million contract somewhere, right? 3-4 years. Like you said it. Guards are getting that right now. And he's been a starter, and his tape last year was great, right? Not this season. It wasn't fantastic this year, but I'm sure he's got enough where he's going to get a lot of interest. And so I don't know if the 49ers can keep him.
Mike McGlinchey, he plays a more premium position at the tackle spot, but that was a guy that 49er fans, they couldn't push him out the door fast enough. And he went to the Denver Broncos and got paid a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So Aaron Banks, even coming off of a season where he's not great, I mean, he's been a starter pretty much since he got into the NFL. There are teams that are going to value that. There are teams that are going to say, you know what? I know a lot of people talk about 49er offensive line, but it's not as bad as people think, right? And they were middle of the pack. I mean, they were like the definition of average. They were ranked 15th overall. Sneaky, they were ranked 15th the year before as well. They went to the Super Bowl. All right. But, hey, man, a part of an offensive line that not terrible, not great. We would like that because our old line, like, let's say if you're the Houston Texans, they have the 31st ranked offensive line in the NFL, and they're trying to make it work right now in the postseason. We'll see if it ends up biting them in the butt in the second round. But I think a guy like Aaron Banks, with all his starting experience, can definitely go to a team and really help.
I think he's gone. I think that's a go. And you can't pay everybody. And I think especially at the non-premium positions, you got to really make sure that that's a difference-making guy that you're going to pay a pretty healthy contract to. So I think 49ers got to go into the draft. Potentially at guard, or maybe some Ben Barch action, some veteran stopgap fill-ins, and have a battle royale at the offensive line spots in training camp. I think that's the plan for the San Francisco 49ers. Need to add some high-end talent to that group, though, for sure. Running backs. Jordan Mason is a restricted free agent. I would almost put him in the same, because he was so successful for the 49ers, but he knows that he's going to not see the field if Christian McCaffrey's healthy. He might want to try to go compete somewhere else, but he's a restricted free agent, so I think the 49ers will keep him around for at least one more year. Elijah Mitchell, though, is an unrestricted free agent, and the guy who ended up starting at the end of the year because of all the injuries, Patrick Taylor, he's also an unrestricted free agent. So I'm just going to go ahead and say stay for Jordan Mason. What about Elijah Mitchell and Patrick Taylor, guys?
I think
Elijah Mitchell is another guy that, because the season did not go as he planned, he'll test the market. I guess I could see him on another team. He's probably the guy that goes to another team and
he'll go to Miami. Well. He'll go to Miami. He'll be the 4th or 5th guy there. He'll get paid a little bit. Yeah. And Taylor was all right.
I think next season, you're going to be watching the game on Sunday, and it's like, oh, Elijah Mitchell carrying the ball, and he has like 120 yards.
Wouldn't shock me.
I think Elijah Mitchell's for sure gone, and Patrick Taylor, though, I think he might be able to come back on a pretty cheap deal for the 49ers, and who knows, maybe another rookie day 3 running back. And I say that, and who knows, maybe it's a 3rd-round pick. We'll see. One thing we don't know is how Christian McCaffrey's doing, and he'll say he's doing great, but I don't know, remember when it's just, you talked about Fred Warner earlier, and by the way, Fred Warner, he's going to be really good on TV someday whenever he wants to hang him
good.
Up. Yeah, or if he wants to go into like the front office or coaching or politics, whatever, like he's slick. He's going to be good on TV. So good on him for that. But he's talking about how many rings Brock Purdy's going to get. And it's like, okay, like be a little bit serious with what you're saying here. And look, the 49ers might win a Super Bowl or 2 under Brock Purdy, right? People think that we don't like Brock Purdy because we talked about the contract a lot. Brock Purdy's really good. The 49ers can win a Super Bowl with him, but let's slow down on like multiple rings. The 49ers, as we just talked about with Croc. Yeah, they haven't won for 30 years. So let's get one before we start talking about multiple rings. but when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers and like Christian McCaffrey talking about how good he's feeling. And remember when they traded for Trent Williams, we all thought that Joe Staley was coming back. And the 49ers were like, oh, yeah, we knew he was retiring. I was like, well, geez, man, okay. And so who knows what's going on behind the scenes with some of these guys that might change some of these things is all I'm saying here. But hopefully Christian McCaffrey is back healthy and Fred Warner's back healthy. And who knows, maybe even Drake Greenlaw is right next to him. So that's the big names on the 49ers list. There's guys like Jalen Moore who might have put enough on tape to get a little scratch somewhere else. But man, with how well he filled in for Trent Williams, I would like to have Jalen Moore back if they can find a way to pay him if he's not going to make a lot of money. Ben Barch as well on the offensive line. Charlie Heck and Matt Hennessy, we barely saw them at the end of the year. But, again, battle royale on the offensive line. There's not going to be too many names, I think, to have a little competition there. Last one, guys. Eric Saubert, tight end. Stay or go.
Whatever.
Don't say anything. Just two shrugs. Don't even care enough, right? That's the answer. Not super impactful. He wasn't bad, but you would like to start upgrading at tight end too. And I think the 49ers would as well. They keep trying. Maybe they'll go back to the well and try one more time to find a new tight end too behind George Kittle in 2025. Nick, thanks for joining once again on another Winky Wednesday. Thanks to all the everydayers and the new listeners alike. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.
See you.
We do ask that you dump your trash on the way out.